is our fourth and final session for the opening of Introducing Academic Advising, and I do see some very familiar faces. Great student from our last workshop with TLET. So what we really want to do is just bring the, as Dr. Ohio said, bring the awareness and I guess the visibility of academic advising back to the campus. And many of you probably work as counselors right now, some of you are actually faculty, and so we just want to have a discussion, if you will, or present some of our ideas in a model that we've actually worked with. So I guess we should start with finding out what is your interpretation of academic advice. Okay, so how many, by show of hands, how many are faculty and how many are actually advisors? Faculty, okay. And the reason why I'm asking, in a couple of other groups that we've actually had some professional advisors in the group. So we want to identify those that are professional advisors and those that are faculty. And so, yes, your definition is probably correct. And again, are you advising? That's the question. I don't know that you all may or may not know from the research that we've done and also from conversations that we've had, faculty don't necessarily know their role in academic advising as it pertains to the students at TSU. And so with that, we want to talk to you all about a model that we're very familiar with and why it's so important to actually do advising from the beginning, as we talked about in one of our workshops, with the end in mind, from orientation all the way through to graduation. So let's talk a little bit about why we advise students. What's the impact of effective academic advising? They'll graduate on time, correctly.
Keep them focused.
Keep them focused, right.
And let me ask you this. I'm honest, I like to talk and I like to tell stories and so forth, but when I went away to college, I was the first one in my family to graduate from college. And for me, I was a fish out of water. In high school, I'd done really well. I was a cheerleader. I did all these extracurricular activities. But the day that my parents drove me to Maryville, Missouri and dropped me off at that dorm and left me there to go to college, go for it, I had no clue what I was doing. And although I was an honor student in high school and I was very focused and I knew what I was doing in high school, in that other environment, I didn't thrive. I was there for about a week when I was like, okay, I'm done. I don't think I need to go to college. I'm good. I can go get a job at the post office and I'll be good. And from where I came from and my family, that was a good career. Just get a job at the post office, stay there forever. So, so for me, about a week in, I was over college. I didn't know about the different buildings. I didn't understand the language. I didn't understand my plan of study. And it was just crazy for me. But not only was it like that for me, it was like that for my peers that had started with me. So several of my classmates, roommates, so forth that had started with me, I noticed that when Christmas break came, some of them didn't come back. When spring break came, some of them didn't come back. So I like to talk about that experience because I think for a lot of our students, when they go away to school, we want to assume that they have a plan mapped out or they have a family member or someone there in their life that has laid out this plan of this is what college is going to look like and this is how you're going to be successful. But when you realize that once you get there, sometimes you don't know what you're doing. I know Dean Ross, she actually is a TSU alumni and she had a different experience. So she did have some support there and she was able to be successful. But for me, it took me a minute to get grounded and it took me a little longer to finish as a result because I didn't have a support staff there or a team that was there at that campus to help me to succeed. Although I did, but it was a little, took a couple of detours. So I don't know if you want to share your experience.
Well, my experience, as Kenya mentioned, was the complete opposite. I was a scholarship athlete, track athlete here at TSU, and everything was laid out for me. I didn't, back then you had to stand in long lines to get your textbooks, you had to pay your fee bill. I had no clue of any of this. I saw my friends doing it, but I didn't have that. All of my classes were chosen for me. I could literally sit down with my coach and maybe an instructor and just say, okay, I want to graduate in journalism, what do I need to take? And I mysteriously had a schedule, okay? So it was just that easy for me. Whereas I had friends on campus that, they were semester over semester trying to figure out how am I going to pay for my education? You know, they were getting big checks, $3,500 a semester, and they had nice clothes, whereas my parents were sending me $25 a month. Yes, that was a lot of money back then. But they were utilizing their financial aid for things that really, you know, they probably didn't need as college students. And with that, some of them never graduated. They never did, but they do still have big student loan bills. And so advising is not only about selection of classes, but advising in terms of how to do a student budget, you know, how to choose a career. For example, I knew that I actually looked at my transcript, my undergrad transcript yesterday, and I was trying to find out why I took so many math classes, because I wasn't going to pass calculus, college algebra 2, so I had to take 4 to get to the 2. And sometimes that happens not to meet the requirement, but because you're trying to just take classes to get your financial aid. And those are the things that we know students do, but as the professional advisors, we've got to advise them to stay on that plan, and so that they can progress towards graduation with the correct number of credit hours to graduate. To further that discussion just a little bit, do you all know how many, on average, how many credit hours the students at TSU are taking to graduate?
On average?
On average?
127, 170.
Right, 170. What's the typical requirement?
127.
120.
Yeah.
127. So they're taking roughly about 50 credits more than they need to graduate. Students are repeating courses, trying to get their GPA up. They got a C, they're trying to get a B. So they've taken it 3 times. Changing majors,
right.
Because they're not being advised, because someone said, you know what, it's easier to go into the business school, get out of technology. They don't have, you know, the end in mind. What career? You know, let's start with that. What do you want to do when you graduate? Do you just want a degree, or your degree should be planning for the future, your career? And so those are the reasons why it's necessary at this point to kind of regroup, go back and look at all that and say, okay, we've learned. We hear that students are trying to navigate through the big university of, you know, planning their financial aid, finding the right career, utilizing the resources that will help them be successful, and then ultimately to graduates. So we want to show a little video. We think it's pretty funny. And this is not any of you.
Meet Jeff Baker, junior college professor. He can identify 45 different brands of pipe tobacco.
Country gentleman.
Every Wednesday at 4, he plays racquetball with the dean.
I also play the vibes.
Tonight's episode, you're my academic advisor.
Professor Baker, you've been assigned as my academic advisor.
That can't be right. I'm not an academic advisor.
It says right here. It's you.
Let me see that. You read that wrong. That's not me. Now, please, do not disturb me again.
Sorry. No, it's you. Professor Baker, room 105.
Okay, come on in. I can't tell you how many times that works. Most of the time they leave and I never see them again. I really thought I had you there.
Well, yeah, no. You didn't.
Very well. Now, I pride myself in knowing all my students by name.
Perry.
Perry. Perry Como. Perry the fairy. Perry the homo. Okay, got it. Why are you here, Perry?
Well, I was hoping to get your advice on how to best tackle my degree.
Yeah? Really?
I need 46 units to complete my major.
And what is your major?
What do you teach?
I ask you first.
English.
Of course.
I'm in your intro to fiction class.
That's right. You sit up near the back. I knew I recognized you. You're one of those guys.
What guys?
Pothead. I can smell it. You have weed on you. I knew it. Hand it over.
I don't have any weed.
Don't make me call campus security. Hand it over right now, mister.
I don't have weed.
I can't tell you how many times that works. If I don't get him with the first one, I get him with that one.
People fall for that?
People are mostly sheep. But you're ahead of the game. You don't need my help.
I'm trying to map out my classes here. Is there any course that I should take first?
Let me level with you. It really doesn't matter. College is a bunch of bullshit.
You're my advisor and you're telling me college is bullshit.
You want my advice? Cheat. That's what I did. You really think you're gonna have to know anything about Madame Bovary later in life?
Then why did you make us read it?
The campus bookstore gives me a $2 kickback on every copy we sell.
That doesn't seem right.
I know. Bummer, right? Well, thanks for stopping by. I want to say Liberace, but that's not right.
Perry.
Perry, yes. Is there anything I can help you with?
Can you just sign this so I can get 21 hours this semester?
21 hours? Huh? Someone's not going to have enough drinking time. There you go. Keep up the good work, son. Ah, Skywalker.
So that's just a funny way of looking at how maybe our students view us as academic advisors. We don't have enough time. We don't know what we're advising on. We really don't know our students. And so had we opened with that, you probably would have thought it was a lot more funny than it was midway. But when Kenya and I actually saw that, we thought, you know, maybe faculty don't know how they are perceived to the students because they don't know what they need to actually be doing as academic advisors.
Okay, this is one of the things that's really critical to being successful in academic advising. And this is just a list that talks a little bit about the components of effective academic advising models. And these are some of the things as you come up with your own model that you'll want to see how you can incorporate. Because as you can see, in the effective academic advising models, you're going to provide the student academic support, but it's a collaborative approach. So it's going to be working with the professional advisors in addition to working with faculty. The third thing is that there's a tool, a tracking tool, that will allow you to have access to the student's information so you can avoid some of these glitches and the overlap. And if you see that you've worked with a student and then you came back and there's a question that the student has, you can access the information. Or if the student is having a problem and you need to reach out to a tutor or an academic advisor, there's a way that all this information is housed so you can access that. Number 4 is critical because in this situation, academic advising would be mandatory one-on-one and face-to-face. Now I know that it can save a lot of time for students to do self-registration, but it's important that there are certain stop points where we need to reach out to the students and make sure that they're on track, especially at the beginning, because if they start off on the wrong track, it's hard to pull them back, and that's when we start having problems with them taking extra classes and so forth. So it's important that you are able to sit down one-on-one so I can say, Stephanie, this is your plan of study, these are the courses that are required of you, and this is what that's going to look like. So it's important to do that. Again, and then advisement is going to include frequent assessments and then follow-up. So it's not just you get advised your freshman year and then we'll see you your junior year. It's several times throughout that year. If there's any concerns, if there's any red flags that come up, we need to be able to stay in touch with that student to find out what's going on, to kind of ease them through that process to help them be more successful. Number 6 talks about a first-year sequence, and this is basically saying that with all of the freshman students, there should be a plan of study that's consistent. And what this does is it prevents students from skipping steps and skipping levels. So say for instance, I'm in a 200 level math class when I never really took my 100 level. And that can happen. We found even at the graduate level, there are students that are coming in ready to graduate, and you see here that they didn't take a basic prerequisite. So if they didn't take that prerequisite, were they really as successful as they could have been in that course? Probably not, because it didn't prepare them for what they needed in that course. So really we want to get them to a consistent first year sequence so everyone's on the same page, so we're all moving forward together, and as an advisor you would know where they are in that process, okay? The next one is a written degree plan and an academic roadmap, which we've talked a little bit about, but it's important that the students have a copy of that, or at least an electronic copy, so they can access it to see what is it that their plan looks like. I know I can speak for myself, and I know Dean Ross can speak for herself, that there were courses that I took that I didn't need to take. And we had one student that was here last week, and he was saying that he didn't understand. He kept taking classes again and again because he just wanted to get the grade. He wanted to increase, go from a C to a B and a B to an A, but he didn't understand how that was impacting the big picture. So once he got closer to graduation date, he had run out of financial aid because he'd taken one class several times. And that's why we need to have a plan of study. So if a student is saying, okay, gosh, I want to switch from communication to technology, what classes are going to transfer, so they have a better understanding of what that's going to look like, because we talked about those 170 credit hours and what's happening there, and that may be a piece of it, that they're taking several classes and then realizing, gosh, I'm not a math person and maybe this is not the best route for me. So if we have a plan of study established early on, they can kind of help keep themselves on track, as opposed to, so when they're sitting with an advisor, and like with me, I took so many classes that I don't even want to think about. I took golf. I don't know why I took golf. It was an option. I think I took aerobics for college credit. And I'm thinking to myself now, why did I do that? And you know how much I pay for that? So it's important that you have a plan of study so you can say, okay, Kenya, when you transfer out, where is that going to really count for you? Number 8, and we've talked a little bit more in depth about this in one of our one-on-one group sessions with the faculty, talks about a robust orientation. And basically what that means is you want to begin with the end in mind. So when we start the students off on their path of going to school and understanding what's expected of them, it's important that you give as much information to help them be prepared, because our students they're going to latch on to whoever they get in touch with first. So if that's a faculty, or if that's their roommate, or if that's an advisor, it's important that we start them off on the right track, because we don't want them to latch on to that wrong person that may lead them down a path that's not going to be successful for them. Number 9, assessments to identify at-risk students. And this is basically, I'll let you talk a little bit more about the assessment.
Well, I think at a number of different universities, all freshmen specifically are required to take an assessment. It's a career assessment. There are also assessments that identify some of their challenges, a predictor of the challenges that they may have. It may be writing, it may be math, it may be things that are outside enforcers that may keep them from graduating, such as childcare, something going on in the home. But the assessment is the key to identify those risks early on and putting a strategy together to address that.
Okay. And number 10 is most important, and that is faculty involvement is key. Because you have the most interaction with the students, it's important for faculty to understand what their role is in academic advising and how they can go about assisting the students. Because as we've gone between different departments, we're finding that that's where there's a little bit of confusion, because the faculty don't quite know what their expectation is, or they don't know what resources are available to help the students. And as we go through and develop your model, it's important that we are able to impart that knowledge onto you as to, if a student comes to you with this concern, how do I help them? Or if I identify these issues in class where the student was doing really well and all of a sudden they started having concerns, who do I reach out to try to assist that student? How do I go about assisting that student? And then where do I know, where does that line end where I have to say, okay, let me go ahead and transition you to someone else who can assist you, okay?
And so what we know from TSU is that we have a faculty model here, where faculty are the, primary person that are advising the students, although there is assistance from the professional advising side. The model that we're most familiar with working with, that we know that is effective, that has impacted persistence and retention in graduation, is the student-centric model. It's a collaborative model where we have the emphasis with the student in the middle. So as you can see, around the student, you've got the faculty who are heavily engaged. There's a robust orientation. There is a specific financial advisor who works with that student from freshman year through graduation. They have a professional academic advisor. They have someone that they can at least relate to in the career services department, which they start that at the freshman year. And then there's a student support services. So as you can see, your question was, when do we advise? And when do you find the time? In this model, there's a family approach, if you will, a team approach. So as Kenya mentioned, if there's something that you can't answer, you have the resources to reach out and branch out. The faculty and the academic advisor, they work hand in hand. In some models, or in some instances, the professional academic advisor actually advises on the general education piece, and then the faculty advises in the program-specific piece. But the key is the degree plan. There's a tool that's used that we're very familiar with. There are two tools, actually. you all work with Banner, correctly? Okay. Is that working for you? Are you able to manipulate that and talk to students, talk to the professional advisors through Banner?
No, we don't know Banner.
You use it for registration? Okay. So let me talk to a system that I know that Prairie View is using called the Right Now system. And basically with Right Now, it's a CRM tool, whereas the faculty, the student, and the professional advisors are able to sync and talk to one another. It's a tracking tool, so all conversations, all emails, any generated documents are all stored in this area, including the degree plan. And what that does is links the professional advisor, the student, and the faculty all together. Because, for example, I may be your faculty advisor in the School of Communications, but I may not know what you've already taken in Gen Ed to advise you. I may not know that you have some concerns. So that actual tool allows you to keep a documentation of all of the conversations, all the emails, all the registrations. You know, students drop in that all the time. It's all there, and it actually links to Banner. So that's why I asked the question, were you using Banner? I'm assuming that you guys are using Banner for registration, which in my mind, that's academic advising. The other piece to that, with Banner talking to the Right Now system, it is critical that there are levels of permissions. Who has permission to override prerequisites, for example, in this room? Okay. So you understand that students will register themselves and their holes, hopefully, set. Sometimes they slip through the crack. And then you have to lift those permits so the students can register. Well, that's an opportunity to advise, because apparently a student is trying to take a class that they haven't met the prerequisite. That's one of those, you know, stop, go back to the student's degree plan and find out why they feel as though they can take this course. So it's a tweaking and adjustment. I really feel strongly about the CRM tool, the Right Now, because the faculty can also use it. Those faculty that are not advising can use it to alert the professional advisors when there are concerns in the classroom. Attendance, academic concerns, you know, personal concerns. They may see that a student behavior has changed. That's all advising in my mind. I think we have to think of advising in a global sense, in that the academic piece is just one thing. Sometimes that's related to, we've got to pull in the other issues as well. So orientation, we talked about this in one of our workshops as being a very key and critical piece. If you start a job, for example, I don't know if anybody's had this experience, but I'll use my experience. 20 years ago, probably started a job, and the onboarding process wasn't right. I started on the first day. I didn't have my laptop. I didn't know where to go to. I didn't know where my office was. I didn't know how I was being paid. I just walked in, hi, we're happy to see you. Let's get to work. We've got a job to do. Orientation at work, relate that to how the students feel when they show up. And let's not forget about the transfer students, because I think a lot of times we assume that they've got college behind them, so they get it. You know, they know what to do. They know where to go. They know how to register. They don't need resources. Well, orientation is that place where we can give them all the tools to be successful. We can set expectations. We can show them how to utilize their student portal, because I think if we did a survey across universities, not just Texas Southern, students don't know how to utilize their student portal, because we believe everybody is so technology savvy that they want it all on their, you know, smartphones and laptops. But the truth is, they're not looking at that information. They're skimming through it. So orientation is that opportunity for faculty to really get involved, to find out what students' needs are, to talk to them about careers, to put them on the right path, and they should be given a degree plan at that time as well.
Okay. The next two are going to be academic advising, which is the academic advisor is the principal point of contact for any academic issues, and they're basically the advocate. So if there's a concern between the student and a faculty member or a grade, there's an issue there, they're the person that they can go to. The next one is a financial advisor, and basically they're responsible for the financial piece, which is one of the main reasons that students drop out, because they don't understand how they're paying for their program. So they may think that they still have resources available, but they may have repeated classes and they get to their junior year and they're out of funding. So what do? So it's important that they have a good connection with their financial aid advisor so they know where they're at in the process, and they know how much funding they have available to help them with the rest of their program. The next is going to be career services, which is going to assist the students with preparing to be a professional. They also assist them with understanding different careers that are available. So if they're deciding to go into a field, they can actually go to career services and they can help them research that a little bit further, or they may have some additional information to help them for when they're ready to go into the workforce. Again, we talked a little bit about faculty, which is the faculty are here to help the students explore specific majors and navigate through their careers, and they also counsel and mentor. So as you can see in this model, it's not just about the faculty is solely responsible, but that is just one piece that you're responsible for, is looking out for that student, assisting that student, mentoring that student as you see fit, because you'll have contact with that student more so than anyone else. And then the last one is support services, which we say that's the department that handles the different issues. Basically anything beyond academics, such as personal issues. I need childcare, transportation, I'm having personal problems that are outside of the realm that you can advise on, then that's where you would refer them for assistance with that, okay? So what we'll do, we've got about just a couple more minutes, what we'll do is go over the main thing, which is why academic advising is important. Main thing is we want to talk about is the persistence and retention is critical. When we talk about your, do you guys know what your graduation rates are, your percentages? 3% I'm sorry? 3% in 4 years. 3% in 4 years, okay. Anyone else?
14% over 7 years, 6.8 years to graduation.
So it's important for these reasons. We want to talk about retention. We also want to talk about the future of TSU. You want to continue to thrive and to grow and to be successful. So it's important as these new changes come through with legislation that our colleague will actually speak about shortly. It's important how this is going to impact TSU from a big picture. So we really want to just go over that and understand that it's not just about we want to be able to counsel the students. It's a bigger picture, because what happens to a student when they don't graduate? And I'll let you talk about this.
And so we know that students have challenges, and this is why academic advising and that holistic model that we spoke about, the student-centric model, is very important, because the students come to us with challenges. Some of them, quite frankly, are not college ready. They're having academic difficulties. They need to find out what additional resources, such as tutoring, how is that available and where is that available to them. Adjustment issues. Some students are actually, they've never had any support. They're here and they're staying on campus, they've been away from home. It's frightening at 17 years old to come from a small town to a big city like Houston and TSU, and you're kind of lost, you're wondering, how do I get around? Lack of clear academic and career goals, and I think that that's key. Students right now, if you watch television, you probably want to be a reality TV show actor, because that's really what you see. But CSI, Law and Order, everybody wants to be an attorney or something kind of sexy and glamorous. Well, that may not be the right career for you, and so we've got to advise them. Uncertainty, like, am I going to graduate? Believe it or not, students start with us and they say, I'm not sure if I'm going to graduate. Lack of commitment. That's, I would say, 80% of our students. It's easy coming from high school to be more successful, because your day starts at 7:25 and it ends at 2:30. Where as a college student, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you may have 2 classes, Tuesdays and Thursdays, you may have 1. What do you do with the rest of your day? I don't know. You should be studying, right? You should have some time management skills, but we know at 17, 18 years old, you want to go hang out on a tiger walk, right? That's what I did for 1 semester. Yeah, exactly. And then isolation, of course, a big one is financial. They're blowing through their money. They don't know how they're paying for their education a lot of times. Most students, when we talk to them about financial aid, they think that it's being paid for free. You know, the government is carrying us. They don't have to pay those loans back, you know, after 6 months after graduation. That's something that we have to constantly advise them on and preparing so that when they're taking out their loans, they're not getting their $3,500 reimbursement check every semester and putting it into, you know, nice clothes, nice shoes, and things like that.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and wrap up, and then at the end, after our colleague speaks, we'll go ahead and take questions from you, okay?